I draw my inspiration from internalizing introspection, reflection, but it's also the people I'm surrounded by. Sir Isaac Newton said, "I've only been able to see far because I sat on the shoulders of giants." By helping individuals in their life and career, I expect nothing from them except they've been carrying me, and it's just I'm surrounded by greatness. So for me, that's probably one of the most important pieces, is where I draw my inspiration is by sharing. People think I have something valuable to share, so they come to me and we have conversations, but I gain from them, they gain from me, and I'm just surrounded by greatness.
Welcome back. This is Inspire Someone Today and episode number 28. Joining us today from Vancouver, Canada is Sam Thiara. Sam is a multifaceted personality and famous for his TED Talk, Discovering the Extraordinary in Ordinary. Sam has trodden a unique path to success and looking forward to hear his story on this episode of Carpe Diem. Sam, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Shrikant, and it's a real pleasure to be here today. And it's an opportunity for me to share, and that has become a real foundation in my life, is about sharing insights and supporting people in their journey. There are 5 things that guide and direct me in life: servant leadership, story sharing, activator, igniter, champion enabler, community do-gooder. Those 5 things have enabled me to support and help people. So it's also made me a speaker, storyteller, mentor and coach, educator, entrepreneur, problem solver, and a community activator. All of those come together with the sole purpose of supporting people in their journey and helping them realize the potential that they do have. And I have to admit, over the years, I mentor and coach 3 to 8 people a week. It's been about 5,000 conversations. And I sit in one of the most amazing places because I am now surrounded by greatness.
Couldn't have been a blockbuster intro than this, Sam. Thank you so much. So what really intrigued me to connect with you and kind of talk to you was the statement that you had in one of your TED Talk, which was discovering the extraordinary in ordinary. What do you mean by it? And what prompted you to kind of take this message to the world?
Well, the idea was I was asked to do TEDx Simon Fraser University, or TEDx SFU. And when I was asked to speak there, it was about, okay, what's the topic? And one of the things I wanted to share was the fact that I'm a storyteller. But people said, look, you tell stories, but how can I tell stories? But my realization is that oftentimes in life, we go through on autopilot. We do our daily activities. We do all of these things throughout the day, and they just blend in as a routine. But what I wanted people to stop and realize is that embedded in the ordinary things that we do every day are the extraordinary things that we sometimes will miss. And, it could be as simple as receiving a letter from somebody in the mail, not a bill, but actually a letter. And it puts a smile on your face. Like, that's extraordinary. Or maybe you're taking a walk and you suddenly have gone to a different direction and you suddenly come to a pond that you were just like, wow, I wish I would have known this. So it's about discovering the extraordinary out of the ordinary. And the way that I suggest that people do this, and I captured it into this term I call carpe. So carpe diem is seize the day, but carpe is how I build my stories. So C stands for curiosity. Go through life with a curious nature and take a different pathway, or look at things from a different perspective. So that's curiosity. The second thing is appreciation. So appreciate people, situations, and things in a much more deeper way. So think of it as, this is not just a flower that I just found that's embedded within the rocks. Appreciate it for more than what it is, and look at it as the struggles that flower had coming between the rocks to bloom. It's the R, which is important because that's reflection. In other words, once you've got curiosity and you've appreciated something, what does it mean? And reflection is where you add purpose and meaning to this, to add substance. And then the P stands for perspectives. In other words, we all have perspectives, So we all see the world in a much more broader, different way. So perspectives is I may see something in one lens and you may see something in a different lens. And the final one is experience, because we go through life with the curiosity, appreciation, reflection, and perspectives. But unless we capture it as an experience, that becomes your story now. If you don't capture it as an experience, your story will die an untimely death and never be experienced, never be shared, and never realized because you haven't captured that. What I've done is use that Carpe principle throughout my life. And when I'm talking to people or we're engaged in a conversation, I have this virtual filing cabinet of stories because I've cataloged them all as experiences. And that's how I go out building stories. But equally at the same time, it suddenly makes me resonate on taking the ordinary and finding extraordinary. In my TEDx speech, it was, for example, I shared how a simple doorstop, a wooden wedge doorstop, is ordinary. But how I made it extraordinary is saying, well, the wooden wedge doorstop holds a door open. But that wooden wedge doorstop is very reflective of the people in my life who have opened and held the doors for me so that I could advance and find my potential and purpose because they've held the door for me. So it just was this parallel. And that's an example of extraordinary out of the ordinary. It's not a doorstop. It reflects and represents the people who have supported me in my journey.
Wow, that's a very beautiful acronym as well. Carpe Diem, and CARP stands for curiosity, appreciation, reflection, perspective, and experience. And of all of the many things that you are, you're also an accomplished storyteller. You have books to your name on this very subject. And why is storytelling so important to us as human beings?
I mean, storytelling has been embedded in our, ever since, we've been generations and centuries. It's an oral transfer of history. And it also resonates. I mean, we have data, we have facts, but storytelling makes it stick. It resonates with people because they can relate to it. So when I teach my class at university, I put a lot of stories, and the students have said, the concepts and ideas are great, but what you do is by putting the stories, we can see the application. We can better appreciate and understand how the stories go. And storytelling is the fact that we all are living stories. And people say, well, yeah, but I don't really have a story to share. And actually you do. And they either don't have a story to share, they feel, or they're afraid to share because they're afraid to be judged. In my first book, what I wrote was there is fear in me in writing this book because, to be honest, I wasn't a writer years ago. And when it emerged, I wrote this book on storytelling. And I said, there's fear in me in writing this book because of what people may think or how they may judge me. But the bigger fear is, what if I don't do this and I don't realize this possibility or this opportunity? So I wrote that first book on storytelling just as a guide and support mechanism to help people realize their own stories.
And how do you see storytelling in the normal walk of life? How can one adapt storytelling and how can it become mainstream for all of us?
Yeah. I mean, think of it this way. When two people get together for a cup of tea or over dinner, or when two families get together, you're always telling stories. And it's a matter of, you may not realize it, but you don't just sit there quietly and look at each other and stare blankly. We'll start saying, oh, did you hear this? And, so-and-so was doing this, or, yeah, no, I just came back from this amazing trip. And let me tell you about that. So it's a way that I find storytelling. And the word I use in one of the 5 things that are important to me is not storytelling, but story sharing. Storytelling is where I tell a story. Story sharing is I may share a story, but then you wind up coming back with another story that complements and layers in, and it becomes a wonderful conversation. So the whole aspect of story sharing is the other word I would use, is it enables us to have a wonderful dialogue, a wonderful conversation that has purpose and meaning.
And as a acclaimed author, university professor on storytelling, what is that you can share with our listeners on the art and science of it? What specific tools can they use for them to become good storytellers?
Yeah, I mean, and this isn't a piece to go by my book, but what I do is I break it down in there. Part one is the importance of storytelling, what is storytelling, and why tell stories. The second part, I share some of my stories using the Carpe principle. And the third part is, but how do I help you now tell your stories? The idea is we are all living stories. And in the beginning of a book, what I wrote was, what's the last story you read? What's the last story you told? But what's the last story you lived? And the last one is the most important part because we all have lived stories, regardless of who you are. And that's where it's the Carpe principle that might help someone. But the idea is you want to start capturing these stories, maybe journal it. And it doesn't even have to be extensive, and it doesn't have to be for anyone except yourself. But think about a trip that you took. What did you enjoy about it? What were the pitfalls? What were the successes of it? Maybe as you were in college or university, what are some of the things that you remember from that time? What are some of the people around you that you respect and admire? Why do you respect and admire them? And, just start journaling and reflecting on this and adding purpose and meaning to it.
So interesting. You mentioned about journaling, and there is a whole lot of industry around this particular piece around journaling. So, how is it important, and what can one get out of journaling?
I think whether it's career or personal development, again, we go through life in autopilot, just doing. So, we're in our corporate job, we go to the office, we do the same thing day in and day out. When I'm mentoring and coaching people, I always say, okay, let's break it down. Think about some of the things that you've done in the office. What is it that you've enjoyed? And what are some of your successes? But start capturing it. Because ideally, what happens is, let's say if you have to go for a job interview, what people will do is I might ask, tell me about an opportunity where, you succeeded as part of a team. And people start scrambling. They're thinking, okay, wait, and they usually don't pull really great examples. But if you journal and start thinking about even the jobs you've had, what are some of the things that really were purposeful and meaningful, the relationships you've had, the problems you solved, and you've journaled it. Well, now it's at your fingertips and you can say, wow, like, okay, this is important. I'll give you an example. Like when I interview people for either positions or volunteer work, and I asked them this question. I said, tell me about yourself. And they don't know how to answer it because they're just giving me a running resume of, well, I do this, I do this, I do this. Now, if somebody asked me that question and said, Sam, tell me about you, well, I say, there are 5 things that guide and direct me in life: servant leadership, story sharing, activator, igniter, champion enabler, and community activator. These 5 guide and direct me so that I'm able to support other people in their journey. And let me share with you why it's important for me to support other people in their journey and help them share their stories. And then, I go into more detail, but that's a much more compelling piece than, well, I teach at university, I'm an author, I speak at conferences. Okay, that's great. That's what you do. And I think one of the more important things about journaling is we spend so much time on what we do. Very few people can actually articulate who they are. But what's really important is understanding who you are so that then you can actually figure out what you need to do. We do it the other way around.
Interesting. So we'll put that into test. You spoke about story sharing, and you gave us some insights about how one can go about story sharing. Now I'll make you to kind of share a real live example of how you went about doing this or how you experienced story sharing through your piece of work of your travel to India
Yes.
with a picture in hand and then resulting in so many memories for you and resulting in authoring a book. Walk us through that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I was born in England, raised in Canada. My parents are from Fiji Islands, which is near Australia, and my grandfathers both come from Punjab. And it's about trying to realize, who am I? Because by looks, I'm Indian, and people come up and say, what part of India are you from? And I say, well, I was born in England, raised in Canada. And they said, no, 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 but where are your parents from? And I'm like, well, they're from Fiji. And then they're like, well, are you Indian? I'm like, well, my grandfathers come from Punjab. And others who are like, Sam, you're not Indian, you're Canadian, whatever that might mean. Well, I decided a number of years ago to go on a journey. I thought, you know what? I need to find out my ancestral roots, and I need to find out my own identity. And nobody really knew where our village was in India, our Bind. And I did a search and tried to find as much information as I could, but it was actually very frustrating because the information was sparse. It wasn't in detail. And people that I would ask, they basically said, well, we're not sure. I mean, the only information we knew is the name of the village is Chadori. It's 5 miles from a post office in Garshankar, and it sits in the district of Hoshiarpur. So that's what I had. So we narrowed it down to that segment, but you can't just find Chadori on a map. So the more people I asked, even people who are from Hoshiarpur, people who know Garshankar said, nope, never heard of Chadori. Are you sure? Or they said, you know what, you may not have an opportunity to find the village. Why even bother trying? And why is this so important? But I love the challenge. So a couple of days before I left, I had in my hand a faded photograph of the people from our band that was given to me. My dad's older brother, my Daya, he had gone to the village years ago, but nobody really pulled that information about where this village was. So again, I think of it as a needle in a haystack, but you don't know where the haystack exactly is. So I decided, because I'd never been to India, I wanted to experience India for all its magnificence and glory, but I also wanted to experience the challenges that it holds. The way that I define it is, I'm a traveler, not a tourist. A tourist wants to just see things. A traveler wants to experience, and I wanted to experience India in all its magnificence and all its challenges. And that's what I write about in my book, Lost and Found, Seeking the Past and Finding Myself. Because it was an amazing journey where I got to realize and see some amazing things and experience amazing things. But ideally, and there were three things that I really wanted to do. One was to see the Taj Mahal. Is it really as magnificent as people say? And oh my gosh, pictures will never do the place justice. The second thing was going to the Golden Temple in Amritsar, because having a Sikh background, I thought, you know what, I really would like to experience and see what the magnificence of the Golden Temple. And it was one of the most spiritual places I've ever been. And I write about it in a very strong, deep way about that. And the third thing was to find the village. Well, I mean, it was up and down with regards to finding the village, because there were challenges, because the information wasn't great. The secondary information we had sent us in a totally different direction. I just wound up saying, forget what everyone has said. Let's just drive to Garshankar. And we drove to Garshankar, and we asked people about Chadori. And suddenly one person said, Chadori is 5 miles up the road this way. Now, I was very cautious and guided, because so far everything had failed us. Mm-hmm. And I thought to myself, okay, here we go again. And every time prior, whenever we got to a village, it's like 10 people come and gather. They look at the picture and they say, well, we don't know about the house, but there's a person in the picture looks like so-and-so. And then 2 people get in our truck, we drive to a house, and 10 people come out. No, this isn't the right house, but you know what? So-and-so looks like this. And, so when we went to this place, the Chadori, there was an old man sitting by this archway, and he looked at the picture, and I was like, there's no possible way that this gentleman, because he's elderly, no glasses, the picture's really faded. I can't even really make out some of the faces. He said, oh, I think so-and-so. This is up the road here. But the house doesn't look the same. So he gets into our vehicle, and I said, okay, here we go again. And we went to the house. 10 people came out. They looked at this picture, and this one lady looked at the picture, and she goes, that's me in the picture. Who are you?
Wow.
And it was just, I know, it was just more like, and all of a sudden I had to do adulting. What? And she just said, yeah, no, this is me in the picture. Who are you guys? And anyways, the long and short of it is, we had this wonderful, amazing reception, and we found the village. And for me, it was really important. And I think the journey and the story is very compelling, apart from just the fact that I found the village. But to me, it was really important because of 2 reasons. Number one, growing up, I look at it this way. If I don't find this village, nobody in my family is going to do this. None of my extended family. The link back to our village is just a thread. And if I don't do this, it's gone forever. The second thing is, and I write about it in my book, is when I was 9 years old, my father had an industrial accident and became a paraplegic, never walked again. And I wanted to do this for him. I wanted to find his father's house, my grandfather's house. And I went out into the field with Ziploc bags in my pocket, and I scooped up dirt, and I brought the village back to my father. So this is the story that I wrote about, but it's not just a story of going on a journey and doing this, and then, yeah, he found his village. The journey was most important because I also found my own identity. I always identified myself as a Thali, segmented into British, Canadian, Fijian, and Indian. And they were always segmented depending on the group I was with or where I was in my life. But it was by going to India, my realization is I'm not a Thali, I'm actually Khichdi. I'm a blend of flavors. And I mean, it's something I write about in my book, about this euphoric moment that it was like 4 a.m. and I just suddenly woke up and I was like, I'm Khichdi. I'm a blend of flavors. And I went to India to find my Indian roots. And the realization was I was always Indian. So that's the story.
Wonderful. Thanks for sharing that. And you did mention about being a traveler, not a tourist. Any other big aha moments from that particular epic journey that has profound, profound impact on you in life?
Oh, definitely. I mean, I think one of the aspects is in Canada here, I do a lot of volunteer work and I support a lot of people, just whether it's in education or personal professional development and whatnot, and work with a lot of people that are in financial difficulties and whatnot. By going to India and seeing the poverty was probably the most difficult part for me because it's like that's where you have to be a bystander. You cannot change things there because of the poverty. And it's not that I'm saying that it's that I think you need to experience it to see it. And this is why I was a traveler. I didn't shut my eyes away from it. I didn't tell our guide, oh, don't show me this. No, I had to experience it for myself. And the thing that I found that was a bit of an epiphany was, while these people are struggling and challenged in life, we all have worries, but we put worries on ourselves. And the fact that many of these people still were smiling, they go about their life, the hardships are there. But the thing is, there was just this genuine, authentic nature about them. And it was also about, just in general, one thing I found is that the genuineness of the people in India, of and how open they were, and the smiles, or just the fact that they'd be happy to help you in any way they could, even though they may not have much, but they will still do whatever they can. And I thought we could certainly all learn lessons from these individuals.
So very true. Thanks for endorsing that. So Sam, will kind of move forward. So this segment is a rapid fire round. I'll put in a few questions and I would want to hear what comes first on your mind.
Sure.
What's your best routine like? If you were to name a few routines, what's the best routine like?
Is to not have a routine. In my life, I don't actually, my calendar is very organic with regards to it. The only routine I have is 3 to 8 conversations a week to help and support people in their life and journey. And it's rewarding for me. It's rewarding for them. That's a routine. Family life, I've got 2 boys, picking them up from school on occasion and taking them to sports. That's the routine. But I think the biggest thing in response to this is I just choose not to have a routine.
Fair enough. What's the best and worst advice that you have received?
Worst advice was you should be this, and because you could make money at this, so you should follow this. The best advice I received was actually from my father my first job when I graduated university and I couldn't find a job was actually being a janitor in a hospital, mopping floors and emptying rubbish bins. And he said, I don't care what you do, but you have to put the best effort forward because your reputation is on the line. And I did the best job possible. There was no floor cleaner than at the end of my shift, and there was no rubbish bin left full. I could have looked at that job and said, well, I'm a janitor, degree on my wall, and this isn't what I'm supposed to be doing. But I embraced it with compassion and with purpose. And I did the best job possible because my reputation and character, and this has transpired to who I am today.
I'm sure it had a profound impact on you, that particular job that you started off. What's the life lesson that you have got from that, and what are you practicing even till date?
Yeah, the three things. The first I just shared with you, which is what my father said, is do the best job in anything that you do. And that's everything that I do, even to this date. The second part was there were times I would get on the elevator with nurses, doctors, and administrators, and I'd be ignored because I was a janitor. Nobody knew my story. Nobody wanted to know my story. I know what it feels like to be ignored. I will never treat people like this. I will talk to everyone because everybody has a story. And the third valuable lesson is no matter what we do in life, we can either look at it as a positive or negative absolute, or we can say, what am I learning from this today? And being a janitor, I learned that, there are lessons in everything that we do, good or bad. And everything I do now, I always try to learn from the experiences. So do the best job, make sure you talk to everybody, and in any opportunity, make sure you learn.
Wonderful. My next rapid fire question is, where does Sam draw his inspiration?
From within. I draw my inspiration from internalizing, introspection, reflection, but it's also the people I'm surrounded by. Sir Isaac Newton said, I've only been able to see far because I sat on the shoulders of giants. By helping individuals in their life and career, I expect nothing from them except they've been carrying me, and it's just I'm surrounded by greatness. So for me, that's probably one of the most important pieces, is where I draw my inspiration is by sharing. People think I have something valuable to share, so they come to me and we have conversations, but I gain from them, they gain from me, and I'm just surrounded by greatness.
What's leadership mean to you?
Leadership is an interesting place. I get people who do come to me saying, I want to be a leader. And I always tell them, I say, leadership is not a place or a position. Leadership is a lifestyle. And the thing is, you don't determine if you're a leader. The people around you determine if you are worthy of the title. So roll up your sleeves, do what is important to you, and those people around you who support you are going to follow you, and they see you as a leader. So even when I teach my class, there will be a small percentage of students who don't connect and resonate with my message or the way that I teach. I can't really change the way I teach for them, but the masses who do believe in the way I teach, to them I may be a leader. But the main thing I just want to share is leadership is not a place or a position. Leadership is a lifestyle. And you just need to make sure that you are spending the time on doing what is right. Regardless, we are all leaders and we're all followers.
True that. If Sam were to have a billboard message, what would that billboard message say?
Actually, can I have two billboards? Because there are two messages.
Go for it.
Okay, one billboard would be, we may come across obstacles in life, but do never feel and fear those obstacles. Embrace the obstacles because they are there for a reason for you to learn. So obstacles are the necessary bricks on the road to your success. The second billboard, because you just passed that one and now you know that there are no obstacles, is everyone's life is an autobiography. Make yours worth reading. It's a reminder and a challenge that all of us are building stories. And there's a need for us to be always aware of the fact that we have these stories. And each of us is writing an autobiography, whether you like it or not. Our life is an autobiography. But what is your autobiography saying? And what is it saying about you? It doesn't mean you have to go out and do dangerous things, but your autobiography is what you're building, chapter by chapter.
Oh, those are two wonderful messages. Embrace obstacles, and everyone's life is an autobiography. So, Sam, again, you are playing, or you have played multiple roles across the spectrum. If there is one thing that you would want to share with my listeners as an Inspire Someone Today message, what would that Inspire Someone Today message be?
To start focusing on who you are over what you do. You can always describe what you do, but it's really hard to understand who you are. I've always said that there are 5 things that guide and direct me in life, and I've shared them a couple of times. But what is important to you? What is something that you are not willing to compromise that makes up your foundation? Take the time to reflect and come up with 5 things that resonate. And the idea is you can change these anytime in your life. But think of it this way. If you were to have 5 things that guide and direct you in life, you now have a way to balance opportunities to see if it matters or it doesn't matter. The way that you do this is look at the work you do. What do you like about it and don't like? What courses did you do that you like and don't like? What do you do in your social time? What do you like about it or don't like to do? And why? Always ask why. And pull 5 words or thoughts and ideas to understand who you are, much like I was able to articulate the 5 things that guide and direct me. Because I will tell you, when opportunities emerge, I compare it to the 5. And the key thing is, when you can hit 5 out of 5, you don't have a job or career, you have fulfillment. And that's what my life is. When you asked about routine, I choose not to have a routine, but those 5 things, that's why I'm a writer and a speaker, storyteller, an educator, entrepreneur, because those things resonate, all of it. So I would ask my audience or your audience to find the things that make up who you are, because what you're going to do will start to emerge as a result. And they can find that on my TEDx speech at Langara College.
So the next obvious direction is to kind of go watch that TEDx talk.
Yeah, so if you were to put my name into YouTube, you'll come up with a couple of my TEDx talks. I've also got about 170 blog posts on life and career.
Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and appreciate you joining us all the way from Vancouver.
It's my pleasure. And I'm hopeful that this has helped your audience and that, somewhere along the way, somebody will reach out and say, thank you for what you've done. It's provided me some insights and it's helped me in life and career.
Thank you for listening into today's edition of Inspire Someone Today. It's been a privilege to bring in these conversations. If you like this episode and have any feedback or comments, do mail me at inspiresomeonetodaypodcast@gmail.com. Inspiring someone is like creating ripples around us. If you like what you listen, feel free to share them and let's create ripples of inspiration. Do not forget to follow me on my Instagram handle @InspireSomeoneTodayPodcast for all the latest updates. This is Srikanth, your host, signing off, and until next time, keep inspiring.